We are going to be in Genesis chapter 38, just kind of moving right along in the book of Genesis. And I was talking to Teresa about this chapter on the way. She always goes out to the pavilion, and they have Bible study out there and takes food and all that stuff. I'm sorry, I can't fix food for them and y'all, so, Anyway, I said this chapter right here just kind of goes along with what we've been saying about Israel, the people of Israel, the family of Israel, quite a long time as we've been studying Genesis, and that they're kind of a mess, just to be honest with you. I used to jokingly say they put the funk in dysfunctional, but we're going to see example of that again. And but there are some things I think we can learn from this passage. So we're going to be in Genesis chapter 38, verses 1 through 5. And we're going to be talking about Judah and Tamar. How many have heard of those? Judah and Tamar. Judah is actually the one of the sons of Jacob, and it is one of the and Leah, the fourth son. And that's the tribe that the Messiah comes from. So, but this would make you wonder why that it comes from this tribe. All right, let's read verses 1 through 5. It came to pass at that time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adullamite whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. And he married her and went in to her. So she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And she conceived yet again and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. He was at Chezib when she bore him. So here we see Judah, the fourth born son of Jacob and Leah. Reuben, Simeon, and Levi were before him. And so we see he was actually, when we talked about it last week, the one that suggested that they sell Joseph into slavery, which was better than what some of the other ones had said, which was to kill him, right? So that is the Judah that we're talking about. And right off the bat, you see that he marries a woman, which was a good thing, produces sons, which was a good thing, but there's a problem with this woman. Anybody notice what that is? She is a Canaanite. And if we will recall, the Canaanite women were always a problem for the people of Israel. They had different gods, different ways of doing things. They were not the chosen people. If we look back, many times, they would send them away to go find their distant cousins or whatever to be able to marry them, rather than produce lineage from the Canaanites. So it was always discouraged by the patriarchs before. The Canaanite neighbors were rapidly corrupting the Israelite family. And so we see that has happened almost immediately. And that's why God will eventually plan to bring them out of Canaan and then back eventually. All right, let's read verses 6 and 7. So Er's marriage to Tamar is what we're going to be talking about. Then Judah took a wife for If you'll notice, these are arranged marriages. It didn't say he went out and found this really pretty woman and decided he'd marry her. No, that's not how it happens in the Middle East, right? So this is an arranged marriage. He takes a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord killed him. Wow. We don't know what did, but we know that it was bad enough that God killed him. that must be pretty extreme, because God didn't even kill, in Genesis chapter 3, God didn't even kill, the names are not coming to me, didn't kill Cain, yes, when he killed his brother Abel. And he allowed him to live. Of course, he had put a mark on him and all those kinds of things, but obviously had committed something that was very evil, and the Lord killed him. So he had also chose another. Here we see that Jacob chooses a son. Jacob chooses a son. Judah, I'm sorry, I keep saying Jacob. Judah chooses another Canaanite woman for his son So compounding the problem. So we don't know what did, but it was a very evil thing. Let's read verses 8 through 10. And Judah said to Onan, "Go in to your brother's wife and marry her." Now, in the Western culture, we probably have a problem with this, as that would be very abnormal for a brother to go marry the sister-in-law, but this was actually common practice, and the Bible actually supports this. So it's interesting. Go into your brother's wife and marry her and raise her up an heir to your brother. But Onan knew that the heir would not be his. And it came to pass, when he went into his brother's wife, that he omitted on the ground, lest he should give her an heir to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord. Therefore he killed him also. So Judah had 3 sons. 2 of them are dead at this point. So I only say that for us to understand why Judah would have hesitated to give her another son, because that would have been his last and only living son, right? So go in to her, marry her, raise up an heir. And this is actually mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 5 through 10. You'll see that it tells them, if a man dies before providing sons to his wife, it was the duty of his brother to marry her and to give her sons. So, and the child would be considered the son of the brother who died. The reason that was because Israel was big on genealogy. So they never wanted a name to just end. That's why the brother would go into the sister-in-law, would marry her, and they would have children. That way, that lineage, that name would still continue to be passed on, because it would not be, in this case, Onan, it would not be considered Onan's child. It would have been considered, what was his name? So that's the purpose for it. But there was a purpose, and you can probably figure this out if you understand some of the intricacies of that day. There would have been here, Er's wife would have had no way to make money and to support herself, because the women in that day did not work outside of the house, right, to be able to gather wages. It was always the husband or the sons that supported the women in the family. So that's one of the purposes of why this is spelled out in Deuteronomy, was so that the woman, as someone who had lost her husband as a widow, she would have a source to help her to live and to buy food and all those kinds of things. So that's why we see that, and the dead brother's name would be carried on, and she wouldn't have to live the rest of her life in a destitute widow situation. It's there, so let's talk about it. So Onan goes in to his sister-in-law, And instead of trying to produce a son, I'm going to say it this way: he was only interested in the sex and not in producing. And so God found this very evil for more than one reason. Number one, it's very selfish. Number two, it is not what he had prescribed. And number three, it left her in a situation where she would have been violated but not produced any children, right? Onan was just seeking the pleasure rather than fulfilling his obligation. So very interesting passage, kind of messed up, as I said, kind of dysfunctional, but that's what we see here in this chapter. Let's read verse 11. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in your father's house till my son Shelah is grown." Now, we don't know how old Shelah, however you say it, was, but obviously Judah thinks he's not old enough to be married, or does he? Is it just that he is worried that this son's going to die too, or is there really so much age difference that he didn't think it was appropriate? For he said, lest he also die like his brothers. So that's definitely in the back of his mind. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. Now, it was not unusual for a widow to leave and to go stay with her father and have a period of mourning. But to stay there for year upon year was not the normal process. That's why, as we read there, as we talked about from Deuteronomy, the process of someone marrying their sister-in-law was put into place. So he was worried that his son would die and that he would not have an heir himself. So she goes to her father's house, stays there, and she's supposed to stay there until Shelah is old enough. But obviously, Judah let it go past the age that would have been appropriate, and Shelah is old enough that he should have been able to marry her and to produce children. So we'll see that. Let's read verses 12 through 14. Now in the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died, and Judah was comforted. And he went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend, Hira, the Adulamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, "Look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep." So she took off her widow's garments. That's the answer to one of the questions, by the way. Covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place which was on the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. So, we see here that Tamar kind of starts to take things into her own hands. She had been obedient as a daughter-in-law, and she was waiting patiently. But then she was told that Judah's wife had passed. He was past the mourning stage. He was going to travel. We'll see what happens here in just a minute. But that he had not been truthful with her and had not given Shelah to her to be married. So she kind of has to face this difficult existence in a culture where life without a husband or children is very, very difficult. And by the way, it would have been Judah's responsibility to care for her. Even though he told her to go to her father's house, it was really his responsibility as the patriarch of the family especially when all the other sons were not old enough, right? Not necessarily to marry her, but at least take care of her financially. So we see that. And so she takes off her widow clothes, and she's out in an open place. And unless you read some commentaries and different things, you would know that putting on a veil was actually what a prostitute would do, which I find it totally different these days, where a bride, when she comes down the aisle, has on a veil. So if we had the same thing going on, that wouldn't be appropriate for a bride to wear a veil, but because it would signify that she is a prostitute. But that's not our culture, right? So we see that happening. And she's sitting out in the open, and she was planning to meet Judah there because she knew he would be coming through the area. So let's read verses 15 through 18. And when Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot. So she was successful in the way she dressed and the way she positioned herself, because she had covered her face. Then he turned to her by the way and said, "Please let me come in to you," for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. So she said, "What will you give me that you may come in to me?" And he said, "I will send a young goat from the flock." So that was the price, all right? So she said, "Will you give me a pledge till you send it?" So in other words, she didn't trust Judah, and she had every reason to not trust Judah because he hadn't lived up and honored his word up to this point. But she is, I'm trying not to put any blame on her at all, because she has been totally mistreated in all of this, although this is very deceptive, obviously, right? So, yes, she is. Yes, she is. We'll get there. We'll talk about that. Tamar is in the lineage of Christ, one of the few women that are in there. So, anyway, she has disguised herself as a prostitute and does end up. Let me finish reading it. Then he said, "What pledge shall I give you?" So she said, "Your signet." Does anybody know what a signet is? It's a ring. It carries with it, it's like a family seal. So it carries with it the ability to do business. It's kind of an official thing, right, for the family. They can do business, they can purchase, they can do all kinds of things with that. So she asked for that, and a cord, and the staff that you have in your hand. Then he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. So very different situation going on here. So she's disguised herself. She meets him. She negotiates the price, a young goat. And then she allows him to come into her. So let's read verses 19 through 23. This is a very straightforward passage. There are some things that we can pull out as we look at this, but it probably won't take too long to go through this. So she arose and went away and laid aside her veil and put on the garments of her widowhood. So she goes back to wearing those garments. And Judah sent the young goat by the hand of his friend, the Adulamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand. But he did not find her. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, "Where's the harlot who was openly by the roadside?" And they said, "There was no harlot in this place." So he returned to Judah and said, "I cannot find her." Also the men of the place said, "There was no harlot in this place." So his friend went to get back the signet, the cord, the staff that was in his hand, and to bring her the kid goat that was the price that they had negotiated. And suddenly nobody knows who she is, where she is, or what's going on, because she'd went back to wearing her garment that is for those who have been who have been widowed. All right, let's read verses 24 through 26. And it came to pass about 3 months after that Judah was told, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot. Furthermore, she is with child by harlotry. So Judah said, Bring her out and let her be burned. Can I just stop there for a minute? Wow. He had done the same thing. He's at fault. He doesn't know that he's the father, but wow, what boldness, right? Talking about double standard here, right? So he says, Bring her out and let her be burned. And when she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man to whom these belong, I am with child. And she said, Please determine who these are. She knew, but she's letting him come to the knowledge of this. The signet and the cord and the staff. So Judah acknowledged them and said, She has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah, my son, and he never knew her again. So he is confronted with the wrong that he's done. What did you say, Carol? She was a smart woman. I wouldn't anticipate or expect anything different from someone who had married into this family. Because if you remember, Jacob is the deceiver from the beginning, right? He is a deceiver. Every once in a while, he is, Israel, and he is the favored one of God. But a lot of times, he acts like the old Jacob, right? The deceiver. So I wouldn't really expect anything less than this of someone who's married into this family. I think she probably figured out how to play the game that they all played, which was deception, right? Just notice how easy it was for him to pass judgment on someone who sinned just as he sinned without passing the same judgment on himself. Can anybody think of another character in the Bible that does something almost exactly the same? And he gets confronted. You remember the story of David with Bathsheba? And I believe it's Nathan, right? That's the prophet. And he comes to him and he tells him this really sad story about about stealing a goat, right? And, it's been mistreated and all this stuff. And David is hot to bring judgment against this person. And Nathan says, the man is you, right? So we see some similar things in the Bible. And I think these are one of those things that we have to look at ourselves and say, how quick are we to judge when we have done something similar? You ever notice we always have more grace for ourselves than we have for anyone else, right? And that's exactly what is happening here. The Bible actually says she has been more righteous than I. That's Judas saying this. So a very interesting scenario that is taking place here. And I do think to say that we're not to judge is not totally true. I know people like to say, don't judge me. But when you say that, you're taking one scripture out of context, and we are to judge what? People's fruit. But we're not supposed to judge people more harshly than we would ourselves, right? And we see that going on here. Let's read verses 27 through 30, coming close to the end of the chapter here. Now it came to pass, at the time for giving birth, that behold, twins were in her womb. Now this would have been a blessing for her, because she's going to have two sons to take care of her, right? She's going to have to wait a little while for them to grow up, but She's going to have two sons to take care of her in her older age. And so it was, when she was giving birth, that one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, "This one came out first." Then it happened, as he drew back his hand, that his brother came out unexpectedly, and she said, "How did you break through? This breach be upon you." Therefore his name was called Perez. Afterward his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. So, twin boys, Zerah and Perez. And Perez is in the list. I believe this is right. I really didn't have time to check it totally. But you can look. Somebody open up your Bible to Matthew chapter 1, verse 3. Is the name Perez in there? All right. So Perez, her son, as the firstborn, is listed as an ancestor of Jesus Christ. Right? So God took the son of this ungodly situation, and he puts him in the family line of the Messiah. Isn't that just like God to do that? To take the least likely and to use them and to do what God just does. He has a way of doing that kind of thing, despite the fact that neither Judah nor Tamar were examples of godliness. Here he's listed in the lineage of Christ. He should also be in, if you want to look it up, Luke chapter 3, verse 33. So the second-born son, Zerah, is the one who had the red thread on his wrist, but the firstborn son, Perez, was the one found in the Messianic line. Yeah. The place of prominence is the firstborn, though. There, yeah. Let's go through the questions that I have. And then if you have questions of your own, we'll come back to those. So question number 1, and we somewhat skimmed through this, but I think you'll get the answer to the question. According to verse 2, why was it wrong for Judah to marry Shua? Because she's a Canaanite, right? Question 2, according to verses 3 through 5, what are the names of Judah and Shua's children? Onan, Shelah, right? According to verse 6, what is the name of Judah's daughter-in-law? Tamar. All right. According to verse 7, why did die? He was wicked in the sight of the Lord, right? Question 5. According to verse 9, why did Onan not fulfill his brother's obligation? Yeah, well, he knew it wasn't going to be his, right? So he's not wanting to do that. He wants, if he's going to have children, he wants to be his, right? So what did you say, Bill, about losing No. Well, he may have less inheritance because that is a possibility. Offspring of the first would be, yeah. So he wouldn't have inherited the first or the firstborn inheritance. So yes, there is some truth in that as well. So that's part of why he didn't want to have children for his brother. Is a part of that. I hadn't really actually put that together, but that is true. Question 6. According to verse 11, what did Judah tell Tamar to do? Wait for Shelah to grow up, remain a widow in your father's house. All right. Question 7. According to verses 14 and 15, how did Tamar trick Judah? A couple of things there. She took off her widow's garments, and then she dressed like a harlot. She veiled her face and sat, yeah, she sat in a place that was known to be where harlots would be as well, right? Then question number 8. What pledge did Tamar ask of Judah? His 3 things: signet, cord, and his staff. Right? Question number 9, according to verse 24. What did Judah say should be done to Tamar because she was pregnant? Bring her out and let her be burned, right? Now, imagine in a way would have been his grandchild, and in a way, this is daughter-in-law. He doesn't even realize it's his. So I don't know. It's a lot there. Yeah, Jerry Springer. Yeah. According to verse 29 and 30, what are the names of Tamar's children? Perez and Zerah.